Okay, guys, welcome to Lucayan Bulls TV again. Sorry, I am here today with my friend Wesley. Um, we are going to talk about line breeding. We are going to jump straight into this, but at first, I just want to let you know that this guy is an encyclopedia when it comes to knowing about dogs, American bully, American bullies, and American bully history. So I just wanted him to jump on today and give us some advice. Um, I will let him take it away. Okay. So talk to us a little about line breeding, West, and why it's important in this breed.
Well, first of all, man, I appreciate you taking your time to talk dogs, man, because I know you love this breed. I respect that from you, and you know I love this breed, and it's something that as dog man, I respect people that like talking and educating. So, and I respect for what you're doing. Line breeding itself, brother, is like it's very important when it comes to genetics in any in any breed. You wanna focus in those genes. You do line breeding to focus in those genes that you want to pass down to the next generation, right? That you want to preserve, you deem as important, and it is there to adhere to the functionality of the dog. Now, obviously, we also have different breeds with different functionalities, right? And some of them are even particular to that specific breed, and that also goes into the proper ways of line breeding, right? Just to keep those genes, those look, that functionality of that specific dog, passing down from generations to generations, just to see them in those offsprings that you're getting, and it is important, man. It's just it is very important for every breed, for every breed.
Okay. So can you give us, I guess, some examples of line when line breeding has taken place that you know of, or from your own personal experience?
So I went to this we went to this I was passed down a series of videos from what the FCI federal can I know in Spanish, trying to translate it in English is uh, Canine Federal Association. I know this is the delegation from Argentina, right? So,
Mhm.
and I do apologize if there's some planes coming over. I'm right next to my base, and that's going to happen a lot. But
Okay, you're
uh,
good.
Dr. Santoyoni was explaining, right, how there's a difference between, right, line breeding and inbreeding, and the way that the people from the FCI, which work very closely with the AKC, what they like to do is line breed into those recessive and dominant genes that are the ones that are desired, are being expressed for one, two, three generations into their dogs. Then they proceed with an inbreeding to tighten those genes up, to double on those genes at that precise time. Right? We already seen one, two, three generations. I got those like in our case will be I got them fronts, I got the angulations, I got the straight top lines, I got, I mean, the weight that I want, I got the bone, the structure that I want. And sometimes with line breeding, before I continue, sometimes with light breeding, we do we do lose a little bit of substance, and that says some. If we look at one of the breeds that we have in our dogs, right, which is the Amstaff, you see the substance. I know there's several things that go to this, but you see the substance of the Amstaff now is not the same Amstaff substance. I'm sorry, of the Amstaff from then. And if you ask some of the breeders, right, they do believe that the gene pool, once it started deviating from the American pit bull, was not such a big gene pool. And then those dogs started to be on top of each other on several occasions, and that usually brings down the bones. When I mean substance, is the bone of the dog, right? That the thickness of the dog. But obviously, there's a lot of things and bad things to go with line breeding and inbreeding that we gotta be aware of. So that the way of doing it will be line breed until you get those desired traits. Your inbreed, and then when you're at this point, what is suggested, and again, this is suggested by the FCI, and there were several individuals with dachshunds, with Amstabs, with even with people with English bulldogs are part of the FCI, right? And they were just looking to how to promote those traits. And this doctor in genetics, Dr. Santoyoni, said you tie them up, you get them. This could be done to half brother, half sister, uncle, niece, or vice versa, right? Um, uh, Lining up that specific dog is in the third generation with different females, whatever it will take. You get the desired genes, then you tie it up with an inbreeding, and then you will look for a specific dog that will be bred the same way that those dogs were bred, and you will take not just one female, you will take several females. In this case, your best females, maybe two sisters and a niece, and you will put it to that dog's bloodline, or even if possible, because you will not do this all at once, you will if you like the results that you get, because obviously genetics is something that is dealt with possibilities, Noah, right? Because we will never be able to predict 100%, but we
Hmm.
just want to increase the possibilities of the majority of the litter having those traits that we want. When that happens, and we have 8 out of 8, we have 4 dogs, which is let's say 50%. With those traits, we were like, this is a very good litter, because
Hmm.
usually, and especially in our breed, we just might get 2 good dogs, and then those dogs, one may be just a standard, and the other one is a pocket. So there's 2 different dogs there, right?
Hmm.
So that is something that we that is desired. When you see those four, at least 50% of the litter, that's you just try to get those possibilities to increase to get the traits that you want. One that is passed down, like I just mentioned, you will go back to selecting another dog that is bred that same way to your females. Why a dog that is bred the same way? Because when these dogs are bred this way, those dogs not only will look like that, they are genetically capable of transmitting those genes to the generation. And
Interesting.
that's why we promote that line breeding is the way to start, not just inbreeding. And then when you get to the inbreeding and then refreshment, that is also another thing that you will have to be aware of, because when you do that, if you not do it correctly, you will find yourself losing the work that you put into it. Because usually when you bring that new blood into your yard, that dog, since it's the one refreshing the tightness of your blood, usually inputs a lot of genes in there. So that's basically what they say. But when you say, you also ask me, hey, can you give me some examples? There's several that I would like to address, but there's one specifically that recently I haven't been able to talk to the person. I just was trying to prepare for this interview. I came across. I know that we probably know Tony Gold.
Uh-huh.
Tony Gold from, yeah, right. So I was watching a dog that I like that Gold produced. It is the dog called that is the property of Joe Scarfone. It's a blue fawn dog, and
I think
it
Benny
yes,
Smalls, I think is his name.
Vinny, yes, that's the name. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And so I was watching Vinny, and liking the way that he's growing up. He's taking his time. The change is there, constant, slow but constant. And then he's reaching that age that he's fully developed, and I'm liking the dog a lot. And I just started looking. I know that he was in Bobby Peru, and I believe it's his aunt. But if you look at Bobby Peru's, I believe, father, that blue and white dog, he comes from a brother sister. I mean, little mate brothers breeding, and to me that was very, very interesting, Very interesting. And that was a good example. When he did that, when Tony Gold did that, and then he put up, I believe it was, I can't remember the line right now. He refreshed the line. Along comes Bobby, and then he puts that line on the bottom as well. Again, that brother and sister, little mate brothers breedings. It is then comes along Joe Scarfone's dog, and I'm looking at, and here's what I'm seeing. I'm looking at, okay, beautiful dog, still very balanced, and but I wanted to see the brothers and sisters. What happened with the rest of the litter? I just ran across another dog that is his brother that is even wider, like the substance is bigger, bigger head, and that really captivated me because in theory, when we go tight, we get a lot of the things, but sometimes we sacrifice that substance. And I'm like, wow. So his brother was very thick. I think it's Mitsuki, something like that is his brother's name. You got Bullypedia, just check out VD Small. You put his little my brother is there. So what happens? Mr. Gold takes that dog and goes tighter again because now he brings another Bobby Peru offsprings and brings it to this dog for a third time. We see in that dog that is little mate sister, and little mate brother breeding like three times in a row. The dogs are still coming out nice. Now, you of all people know that I'm not too favorable like yourself and amongst other people about the Dax bloodline. We are not too favorable of it. And this is not to find anybody there. It's just that we're not utilizing the blood right now. We go somewhere else. I do know that the bloodline has bulldog and every other racer's edge and whatever has both. That's not what we're trying to go here, right? But then Tony chooses a heavy dash dog, and now you see the grand champion that he has. I think is uh, Big Bang, something like that.
Bada
Is the
bing,
dog.
bada
Bada
bing.
Bing. That's him. That's him. So you see the power. You see the power of the proper selection of breeding. And when he opens that, this dog is tight on that as well. Like he's tight as well. Obviously, not a dog that I would choose, but I mean, you look at the dog is beautiful. Regardless of what it is, the dog is beautiful. Dog is beautiful.
Immaculate.
And I'm like, wow, wow. So this is an example of how we should breed. Mind you, when and this is something that happens a lot in the community, right? Right, and the community now, Noah, is it has a lot of like it's been last 7 or 8 years. This controversy back and forward, Dax, this or that or whatever. I believe the community, like I expressed to you several times, I believe the community should divide. The community should divide, and that will bring less tension between the community and would allow for projects to be developed even farther, right?
Uh-huh.
But even in the case a dog that I would not choose, you see a perfect example of what selective breeding is. Another way of putting this, there's other dogs out there. Right now, I'm looking the same example. The same example. We could view it when we're looking at, and this is just dogs that I want to mention because people are familiar with. When you're looking at Lucky Luciano, when we're looking at Chicharito, when we're looking at a G-Train Soul Train offsprings that came from that line. If you see all them dogs, their mother was heavy line bred Razor's Edge
Mhm.
and was refreshed by the new line that in this case was Dax, right?
Mhm.
And if you look at those dogs to me, even though again, not a fan of them, very good looking dogs. Structure wise, so far a lot of them are still alive. So that is something that people might be more familiar with, right? But
Mhm. You know, I
those are
wanted
some
to.
a few examples. Now, if you look at the Razor's Edge, to keep a little bit out of the DAX thing, right? If you look at the Razor's Edge, you look at the for example the Suarez bloodline.
I was
You see
surprised.
that he has packed all those genes in there. Very particular of the Suarez bloodline, those tight, small feet. I mean, very athletic dogs. I mean, smaller and a smaller frame, but he has packed those genes as well. That's the same way of. And if you look, for example, if you look at the blood that he mixed with it, was the blood of it was half and Paco all the way. In a little bit of Nemesis bloodline. So you don't have to actually do just one dog, which is in my case, Noah. To be very specific, what I got against the Dax is you just use one dog and
Mm,
that's it. You just selected one dog to do all of this. And in any breed at any time, that's a recipe for disaster.
mhm,
Because and we all know that our breed, which I believe is one of the best breeds in the world, coming from a heavy a breeder of pit bulls back in the day that I was, I found that everything that I like is in the American Bully. It's a beautiful breed, right? But
mhm.
I mean, there's things in it that also are not too good, and I know that you're sure of it.
Uh-huh.
But hopefully that answers some of your questions.
No, definitely. Um, when I think of line breeding, um, I also think of um, the bully market.
Oh
To me,
yes,
yeah, to me, it seems like they've, stuck with, their dogs through generations, even though they've refreshed it with, I guess, sometimes the collaboration with the lounge blood, I think, but
the
it's
bus
still,
line. I believe is that they use a lot of the bus line blood
well,
with
yes, it is a lot of Z bus stuff, but I know
yeah.
they when they did the collaboration with Big Kev, I think, um, I think they kept a few of those offsprings, but still brought it back to some of the bus stuff. And then I think, as Rob said, they're supposed to go back to lock and load, maybe, and they're cloning Bistro as well. But would you say that as another kennel that is using, I guess that is practicing line breeding as well?
Yes. And here's the way that you will look at. There's so much to talk about, man. I mean, there's so much. But right now, if you look at what Robert Lee did, he was choosing specifically the heartbreaker. I would call it the heartbreaker factor, right? Because he has two different sisters of heartbreaker. So he took Diego thing mixed with a heartbreaker sister, and then brought the heartbreaker sister again to create lock and load, another one. But also Robert Lee messed around with Voodoo, which Voodoo was King Kamali's sister with Heartbreaker himself. He also, I mean, had another, I had offsprings of Diego thing with nasty, not Diego thing Manu, with nasty Neela's little May sister. So it was like making another Diego thing, right? Because it was Little May sisters with the same dog. He also had that. My dog has that in the pedigree. I mean, Robert did a lot of that. But if you look at that and you look at what Pratt Pitts has done, which is also nemesis with the Diego thing. If you look at what this dog Jagermeister or Kuma from Bebo's Bullies, those dogs are similar as well. You see a lot of similarities among these dogs, and those dogs are Diego Thing's brother, daughter, which is a Samsung daughter to Heartbreaker. So you see, when you start seeing these patterns, you are able to determine, okay, when these dogs are mixed, I'm going to get this, right? I'm going to get this. But it is very important to talk about, since we're talking about line breeding, right? Before we go into selecting dogs together. If you don't know what are dominant genes in your breed and what are recessive genes, then you're in trouble, because how would you know what how you would control or, and like I said before, increase the possibilities
Mm-hmm.
of producing those things, right? If you don't know what is what, then you just, just blindfolded throwing wet rags at a wall to see what sticks. And that's a lot of the things that we see in the, not just in our community, man. I'm talking about dogs worldwide. One of the biggest topics, which was my surprise in the FCI during those 12 videos, 40 hours of instruction, was easy Westy, back fronts, high rears, and the American bully was not there. They were talking about terriers. I mean, they were talking. Obviously, we have a little bit in the bulldog side, right? But they were talking about all breeds in this. I mean, whatever, all different types of groups. They have this issue because those are dominant bad genes, and since we have a common ancestor in all breeds, we will have those bad genes in all breeds. So it was very interesting to hear these people still, after 50, 60 years of experience, having to deal with these issues in their breeds. And it's not to allow us to say, you know what, let's go on a free for all because if these people have 50 years here, we have nothing to worry about. No, it's totally the opposite. It's calling us to look outside of our breed to people that are more experienced with dogs in general, with the species, and learn from them. Try to copy what they're doing because they have similar issues as well. To not extend this any further, let's go dive into it. So I sat down with a notebook, brother, and I was like writing stuff, and I replayed the video and replayed the video and replayed the video. He was going exactly in structure wise what was dominant and what was recessive. So when he was saying substance, big head, straight tails, scissorites, what else? Substance, yes, those were dominant genes.
Okay.
So if you're talking about, I have a dog with a king tail, and you have a dog with a straight tail, we will put them together, and more of the 50% of the litter should have straight tails. Should have straight tails. If not, obviously that dog also had that gene in it, right? Had that gene in some place. That will make you look. Um, uh, Sometimes, and then you might say, "But hey, Wes, I have two dogs with straight tails. How the hell did I got a king tail?" Right? That's where I'm going. That's where I'm going. So also dominant genes were easy Westies and bad angulation and bad movement. Those things are dominant but not desired genes. When you go into the recessive genes, oh, I do forgot. Long ears, like when the ears go to, like, not on top over here, they go to the side and they drop down and they're long. That is a dominant gene as well. So
Okay.
when we go to the other side, it's just now that you know what's dominant good and dominant bad, you could just switch it up and you will understand what is recessive good and recessive bad. That good movement, that bounce. Oh, before I forget, behavior is the dominant factor. When your dog has bad behavior, that can filter down as well. But that good bounce that they have when the dog is moving, a good rears, and rears have to do with angulation from the hips as well. The ears on top, straight feet. Straight feet are recessive. The good passions, not splayed feet, compact feet, like those little puffy, beautiful things that we like. That is a recessive gene. And then movement, ears, fronts and backs, uh, top lines are dominant gene, are not a recessive gene, and good angulation. So to get all these things together, and I'm probably confusing a lot of people, to get those bad genes out of there, being dominant, being the ones that are going to express themselves. If you don't have a dog with already good recessive genes there, breeding with another good dog that have recessive genes to get them to express themselves means that you got to properly line breed these dogs to
Hmm.
get those genes out there.
Hmm.
So that being said, so I got a dog with a bad rear, but it has good fronts. It has a complete tail. It has no underbite, no overbite, no overbite. The ears are here. Everything is looking good. Good. Obviously, when we see a bad angulation on the rear, we will see probably not a straight top line. And I want people, when I say straight top line, Noah, I mean our standard when once a straight, that's a hard thing. That is a very hard thing. You see breeds already out there with a standard that allows a high rear because it's better for mobility for that breed. So it's a hard thing. Remember, we have a common ancestor. So when we see all these things, we want to put dogs that are always expressing the genes. We want to put them that are expressing the genes. So that means that those dogs are actually showing the traits that we want to. And we want to put those dogs together. So if I have a dog with a high rear, I'd rather get a dog with a king tail and a good rear than a dog with a bad rear because it has the hips, it has the knees, it has the back. That is something that if I could stay away from, I'd rather breed to a king tail because what? I know the straight tail is a dominant gene, and I will get rid of that just like that in 1 or 2 generations. So before we start line breeding and doing inbreeding, it's good to know what are those traits, dominant and recessive traits within dogs in general.
Okay. Yeah, especially when you mentioned the kink tails, I thought of some of the dogs in the Suarez line. They have good structure, but one of the flaws associated with them are the kink tails. Especially, I guess, when you tighten up on that Cairo blood, sometimes from
Yes.
yeah. So, but when I think of
Now that you
also,
mentioned this, my friend, now that you mentioned this, no, go ahead, go ahead.
um, no, I was thinking of when people line breed um, docks. What I guess the community has seen um, bad examples of what happens when you line breed some of the wrong things.
Yes.
You know, I guess can you tell us some of those I guess things that would happen or that we've seen from the docs. Not picking on it, but just giving us a small touch of what it's like when that happens. Because I see
Yes.
we have 10 minutes left here.
I have seen a lot of heart problems, a lot of breathing problems, and which is the when you're breathing the trachea, there has a little hole like this, right? So when the soft palate is elongated, that little hole that is there with the saliva and the bad breathing and the irritation that it gets because of the dog always doing that irritates that area. So makes it even more small than what it should be, creating more breathing problems, creating rotating to heart problems that breed also has a lot of cornea problems, and more than anything, I have seen a lot of high rears from it. I do see, and I gotta be honest with you, I have seen some freaking, and I you know that I'm not a fan of the blood, but I have seen some amazing fronts, bro. Like
Okay.
I'm looking at it as how this is possible. I say, how is this possible that that dog? I mean, immaculate, immaculate, like
Hmm.
Photoshop almost, you know. But there's a lot of so bad things that go with it, and not that just that. Now that you mentioned Marco, and I've talked to Marco several times. I have dogs from his line. One of my friends that introduced me to Marco, I mean, that was working directly to him in Puerto Rico, had like I saw he bought Senpai, and he had Paco straight sons. He had Pachi and the other fawn female in his house. I went there several times. Paco, and I'm gonna be straight up with you, because a lot of people we are not talking about fame or whatever. Marco, I respect Marco beyond stuff because the guy is very approachable. But Marco has worked himself from that dog had a king tail, one testicle, and underbite, straight from Paco himself. I had the dog in front of me, and I'm like, oh my god. And I mean, Marco said, hey, the dog needs to come back, and we're gonna work with all this. We're gonna work with all of it. But that was something that Marco didn't know he bought into. But look at what he did from that point till now. I
Hmm.
mean, it is amazing what he
Hmm.
has done from one point to another. You don't see the kinks. You don't see the one testicles no more. You don't see the underbites. Yes, there's still things to need we work with, and for every individual, you will have your preference. But he has worked from one side to completely to the other, and he did still use. If you look at that, was his stud. That was his base. He did everything with that dog.
You talking about Little
But
Roll
then
or Paco?
Paco, Little
Pa-
Roll did the same thing. Little Roll did the same thing. Little Roll did the same thing. He didn't do the kinks though, but he did do the one testicle a lot, a lot. But as you can see, this not just happens to us; it happens to every single other breed. But it's not allowing you. I'm not saying to the people out there, go choose the dog with one testicle and start breeding it. Please, we're not saying that. What we're saying that there's a way to walk away from the faults and all the things that are going around with the community into a more health wise dog. But this is the thing, Noah. This is the thing that really bothers me. That really gets to me. Culturally, the entire world has gone into an individualistic perspective of everything, of everything. So what is healthy to you might not mean what is healthy to me. And that has had its influence on everything,
Mhm.
right? Everybody's looking at what the individual, I mean, that which comes with autonomy and other great things that happen. I mean, that has to have a very bad influence over the entire world. And obviously, it has rolled on into the American bully. Of course, we live on the world, right? And
Mhm.
and when you look at the people, they might be just comparing to a very to a even less healthier dog and looking at their dog like, oh, my dog is healthy, right? So we before we start pointing out the finger and throwing the dirty, I mean, rags at people, we got to understand what is their experience with the breed. To me,
Mhm.
I look at a person and I say, why in the world are you breeding an English bulldog? If you're breeding an English bulldog, if we go by natural selection, you leave those individuals together. In 3 years, 90% of them are gone. They're not there. They're not there. And if the individuals that were able to mount the female and the females that were able to give birth to, right? Give birth to, you're going to end up by natural selection with dogs that look nothing like English bulldogs
Mhm.
because nature itself is going to start, whoever's able to survive is able to survive, right? But if we have gone to the extent as human beings to get the English bulldog in the AKC, it should not be a surprise to us that someone that has a dog that is way more capable. Well, some of them are more capable. Some of them are way more capable than an English bulldog. That when you talk about health, they're gonna be like, "What?" And you know by yourself, though, that English bulldogs. This is one of the topics that was in the videos. Sadly but truly, the English bulldog is a dog that carries a lot of negativity in his genes, and is one of the dogs that is best sold in the entire world. It's the way it is, right? It's the way it
Yeah,
is.
yeah. No man, yeah. You couldn't be more right on that. But I just want to take this time to thank you for coming. Um, we definitely appreciate your expertise and your knowledge and your wisdom that you shared with us. Um, I mean, it was just priceless and invaluable information that you shared with us today. Um, these are things that the information that he shared today are sometimes things that you won't find in the community because you can't talk with a lot of people about dogs. And some people just choose not to be objective about certain things. But my friend Wes, we have a lot of conversations because I do find him to be objective. He does weigh the pros and the cons of almost every topic that we talk about when we talk about American bullies. So I wanted you guys to get to know him. He is on Facebook at Yarmia and Wesley. Um, he's always willing to talk dogs. So we appreciate you, man, stopping by and spending some time with us. But we are going to do another video. Um, so you guys stay tuned. But I just want to say thank you to my friend Wes. And we will see you guys next time. Okay.
Can I say something really quick, Noah, before
Oh,
we
go
leave?
ahead.
That I
Go ahead, brother. Yeah.
Yes. I wanted to give because I do have a preference in this breed, and I have a group of people that are doing some beautiful things. I want to give a shout to. I mean, Adam Perez is doing wonderful things with a mixture of blood that is I mean amazing. The Shifu blood. He's getting his hand in some half blood, very good half blood, and Nick Pike is working with him very nicely. If you're looking for the thick blood, Suarez blood, these people have it. These people like really have it. And a guy, Juan de Leon, is taking that blood and is giving it a twist, and it's giving a little bit of a bistro to it. And let me tell you, man, it's coming out phenomenal. I got a guy, Armando Colunga. He did a recent breeding with Mike Gorilla from Gorilla Kennels. I'm looking at those dogs. People, if you're listening to me, please, if you listen to anything, there's this dog named Remus. This dog named Remus. Use this freaking dog.
It's 10
Use
seconds,
this.
Wes.
Use
10
this
seconds.
dog. And I mean, I would
Two.
talk say that, man. This
Yeah, so the video cut short. We ran out of time, but my friend was giving shout outs to some of the people that he knew, even the owner of Remus. Um, but we're just wrapping up this conversation about line breeding to continue in another part series that we're going to do. His name is Wesley. His Facebook name is Yarmia and Wesley. So you can find him on Facebook. Contact him. He's always willing to talk about good, healthy American bullies, and just feel free to contact him for any questions that you have. Okay. See you guys next time.